that bottle open actually got picked up.
Well, my bottle open?
Yeah,
I went
somehow.
I went for the festive day, St. Patrick's
today
Day.
is St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah. Sláinte.
I'm not wearing green. I'll pinch myself. Isn't that what it is? Or to hit yourself or whatever it is? I don't even know. But
hit yourself.
I'm not wearing green, right? No, I'm not. All right. Well, we almost got to see Rhythm X and Matrix and Connexus and Cap City live this past weekend. The goal was to go to Northern Kentucky University, like an hour from each of us, and check them out in the lot. Hopefully film some stuff for our own channel and for everybody to see where those ensembles are at. But Mother Nature had something to say about that, and massive storms were going through all of the South and Kentucky and Tennessee.
I do think that WGI called it prematurely. I was literally 15 minutes away from the stadium and got a text from somebody on a staff like they just canceled the show, and I was just like,
yeah, you were closer than me. I ended up just going to a hockey game because my family was already up in Cincinnati, so I just kept going and went to the game with them, which was fun. But I wanted to see some drums.
The weather did not get anywhere near as bad but it was just rain. But they had to make a call. I get it. It's a tough decision. I was not happy about it, but it is what it is.
No, so. And I called Adam Norris, the battery coordinator, Quad Tech, whatever his official title is at Rhythm X. Like, all right, where's your rehearsal site? Is it good? Could we come and watch you all rehearse for a little bit? And he said, well, I'm going to be honest with you. It's not a good site. He goes, it's not really a good, you won't be able to film anything. You won't be able to get a good read. It's super boomy, small gym. I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to not do that then.
I did have someone send me some clips. They lived up near there and they went and checked it out. Shout out Lewis. But it was like, you could, when a single section was playing and that was it, you're like, oh, I can kind of hear that. But
everything else was not.
Everything else was just like a wash.
All right. Well, this is our mid-season podcast. We're going to be going over where we think all the groups are. This is the Aged Out podcast. We'll go ahead and get this out of the way. We're the two hosts, Michael Fantini and
Evan Worrell. This is not the rankings, though. We're not doing our rankings.
Predictions will be in 2 or 3 weeks. This is going to be where we think things stand right now. Thoughts about different shows, different groups. Now that we've pretty much seen a lot of shows on the floor, a lot of footage, everybody. But today's episode, before we get into that, is sponsored by Brash Drums. Once again, go to brashdrums.com. The alpha pad Evan's holding up right now is phenomenal. I use it every day to drum to the Aged Out Fundamentals playlist, which link to that is also in the description. Work on tap drags, tap fives, triplet roll, slow to fast. It increases 2 clicks every time. If you don't know what that is yet, check that out. It's a great practice tool, totally free to anyone that wants to use it. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram, whatever, all that good stuff. Patreon, join button here on YouTube, agedoutpodcast.com, get a shirt sticker if you feel so inclined. Okay. This is our mid-season stuff. We have a lot to say. We've been ranting in a bunch of text groups with a bunch of friends of ours about all kinds of stuff for the past couple weeks. We almost
this is going to be it's going to be a very love-hate relationship with WGI.
The way that I put this to Robert Martinez and George Collins, the kid gloves are coming off. We're close enough to finals. If someone's dirty, we're going to say they're dirty. If someone plays better than another group, we're going to say it. We're just going to be very candid today. It's got to be said. Just throw it all out there. Many thoughts. But to start, let's start at the top of Independent World. And again, not do rankings, but kind of just talk about how we see things.
There's definitely been a tier in this top of this class for a while. But it does feel like the lines have become more consistently blurred on where that tier ends. Whether it's like
the
a
top 5 line,
top 5, top 6. Yeah, I think we are crossing into Infinity is consistently proving themselves year after year, both design wise and execution wise. And part of me too, the show yesterday, I thought they should have won that show. They finished behind Mystique. I thought they were going to win. I think they're in the top tier, and I don't think I've been as solid to say that the last couple of years.
Well, yeah, this is the 3rd year now where they're knocking on the door, and just differing accounts of should they have beaten Mystique this weekend, should they have not. I watched the run. I watched Mystique's run. I think Mystique plays better. I think Mystique is cleaner. And that's been kind of the crux. I feel like the show design for Infinity has been in that top caliber conversation for a few years, but it always comes down, can they be consistent enough? Can they play well enough to do it? Because Mystique is going to be clean. Whether the show works or not, this Mystique is going to be clean.
And obviously, if you're looking at the recaps, Infinity did win both music boxes from both
Mhm.
judges. So yeah, shout out to them. I did think that Mystique was a little bit more transparent with what they were presenting as a music ensemble, but overall, I thought Infinity, like effect captions, visual captions, was like, I'm pretty sure they're going to win this fairly easily. But
Yeah.
so to see the point difference in the opposite swing was a little surprising. And yeah, some of the spreads too. Like, I think I've talked to a few judges, and they always say that, you know, the higher ups in the judging liaison, like, they do empower them to make the calls that they feel like they need to make. And I think whether that's applying a spread that's appropriately big is fine, but sometimes, like, you know, maybe busting the mold in, you know, group X that maybe consistently hovers around 12th, 11th place. Maybe this year they're in a caption 4th, 5th place. You know, I like to see more of that stuff.
Yeah, I think we will over time too, and I think we've already started to see that a little bit. But so yeah, the Infinity Mystique battle is real. I think that kind of gives you a little bit of a prediction. I think that's the bottom two of our top of independent world, but I think the top three are going to be a coin flip on the rankings. I think Pulse, RCC, and X have differentiated themselves as the three best groups in independent world. Broken City seems to be kind of on an island on their own in between Mystique and Infinity and the top three I just mentioned. I have no clue who's going to win or the medal order, but I think I'm pretty confident. And you can look, this is not rocket science. Look at the recaps. RCC and Pulse were neck and neck out in California yesterday, and their score was right exactly where X's score was in Kentucky this weekend too. Now, and they're across the country, different judges, who knows?
Well, if you do I was going to say, if you do a deep dive too in some of those recaps, you can be like, oh, well, this person judged and it was a different show, but they did judge these other groups a week ago or these other groups 2 weeks ago, and kind of like use that as somewhat of a barometer. Like, oh, this judge was at both shows. Like, the groups weren't at both shows, but, you know.
They've seen them both in close enough proximity.
I pay attention to that stuff too. Just like who's given numbers, and then like a week later, what number are they giving this person? So yeah, so you can pay attention.
Yeah, and this is going to sound like a duh statement, but everyone's gotten cleaner since the beginning of the season when we first reacted to these top groups as we try to start, well, all of them but Rhythm X, try to start the season with the top of the activity just to get everything excited and kicked off. But RCC's gotten a lot cleaner. I watched a video from 2 weeks ago. We watched them at the very beginning, early February. 2 weeks ago would have been like early March at this point. They have cleaned up way more than I thought they would have by this point in the season. Like, that video sounds pretty solid for a lot. It's a lot cleaner. I will say, I think you've said this too. I don't think the snare book is the hardest thing in the world.
Yeah, I think content-wise, it just doesn't always display what they're capable of, and I'm just like, I want more. Like,
I think, and I won't be
the Star Wars meme.
I won't be as blunt as I want to be on this statement, but it's almost like and again, when you are playing very fast tempos, the content of what's in the music is going to, by default, have to be a little easier, so to speak, because you're playing it so fast. But that's kind of what it is.
Yeah, you can't. It's hard to
really
play
fast.
Like, when it's 220, it's hard to play triplet rolls. Like, I've tried.
Yeah, it is what it is. So it's like they're doing it well, but it's not the hardest thing in the world. I think the quad book is hard. I love what their quad line's doing this year, and they were good.
Great.
Front ensemble's great. So they're great. Pulse to me is just Pulse. Solid show, solid playing. They're not.
I still feel like they're giving us what we expect.
100%.
Although I think that the show is just not like, it doesn't hit me like some of those other ones are.
Subjectively, I like RCC and X more.
RCC show feels like was the Spice Show 2019. It feels like that vibe, except better. Where they did like the Dune stuff.
And we say that about Pulse, but you'd be nuts to count Pulse out of the possibility of winning a gold medal. They're
going to execute so well.
They're going to execute so well by Dayton 3.5 weeks from now. And even if the show isn't what it normally is, in our opinion, I kind of don't get it as much, but they play their butts off.
People have sent messages like, "Oh, it's about this, the blah, blah, the." I was like, the rope drum still doesn't make sense to me. That's some of what they sent me helps enlighten some aspects of the show, but I'm like, all right, I still don't get the rope drum.
Yeah. So either way, Broken City's doing Broken City things. if they can get the inconsistency baked into the writing
I think
in there,
that if there was
they could move up in the conversation.
I think if there's an award for like best indoor experience, they would probably be in the running for a gold medal every year.
Yeah.
Like if it was like the experience that I'm going to have watching the show and then being able to like suck you in, I think that they're probably the best at that almost every year.
I'm stoked to see them live in a few weeks in Dayton. I always am. I always end up, like I've said before, liking their show more than I think I will live. It hits so well. It makes you feel stuff. It puts you on the edge of your seat at times, surprises you, engages you the whole time as an audience member and listener. But for them, it just comes down to consistency of the playing. And it's almost like the Infinity thing a little bit. Show's solid, show design's there. You just got to play better.
Yep.
Nothing simple as that. All right. Moving down from that, I mean, you have that whole like POW, Monarch, United, GMU. Atlanta Quest, like that whole middle group of finals. Just
Cap
like
City.
That's going to be a crapshoot again. I think there's some groups that are doing better than they normally are. There's some groups that aren't as good as they have been the past couple of years. Let's just start with, we'll save GMU for here in a minute. And admittedly, I have not seen a lot of Monarch because there's not a lot of Monarch to see out on the internet right now. I've seen the show. I watched them to whatever Texas regional that was or whatever a couple weeks ago. I watched. Yeah. Not the whole show wasn't done. It wasn't. Admittedly, I wasn't super impressed. Yeah. But they'll be in finals. I don't know where, and I just don't have the information to talk much about them yet.
I feel like this is an appropriate time as well to say that, and I'm going to speak for us a little bit, for both of us, that like when we say we don't like something or like it's not like super strong, a lot of what we're talking about is kind of like the design elements, not necessarily like what the members are doing.
Yeah,
like not exactly their execution, but I have some design rants that I'm going to save.
Well, we'll save the first half. We'll talk about the season. Second half, we have some rants to go on. So stick around and listen all the way through because we'll get into the weeds a little bit. But yeah, I'll piggyback on that disclaimer. Nothing we criticize here is like members' efforts, the work every kid is putting in every weekend. We get it. We have the utmost respect for it. We've been there before. We were a part of really good shows. Well, was I?
I was a part of some less than good shows.
Objectively, the best show I was a part of was probably Houdini at Blue Stars, my first drum corps summer.
That's a great show.
The Blue Coat show I was in was fine. None of the indoor shows I was in was like amazing.
Yeah, I think the worst show I was in, actually, if you'd asked me years ago, I would have said it was 2011 Rhythm X, but now I'd probably say it's 2012 Rhythm X.
Yeah.
Actually, I take that back. It was 2010 Crown. That was the worst one.
I was surprised you didn't say the 10 Crown show. But
I got there. It definitely was the worst. Anyway.
All right. But so yes, we understand it. We're not putting down what effort any member is putting in week and week out, no matter what we say. All right. Can't talk much about Monarch, but United, we saw them last weekend.
I think that gym sucked. So
it was such a bad venue.
I'm not going to go to, or at least the recording from that gym sucked. It seems like they're playing pretty well. You know, I saw some videos of like the quads warming up. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Some couple fan videos from the stands. I was like, okay, this sounds a lot better in the stream. That show, there's a lot going on too. There's a lot going on. All right. But I think that they will be in that mid tier. Cap City beat Matrix this weekend, which I thought was,
well deserved.
Well deserved, and I'll talk about that show here a little bit more here in a second too.
Cap City, I haven't liked their show the last couple of years, and I thought they could have played better in a lot of them, but this year I'm buying what they're selling. The show is cohesive, it's easy to understand. Do they have to clean up still? Yeah, but that's just the name of the game.
I do really like this show. It's probably the best show they've done since, I would say, 2019. I think the 2020 season would have been a better show, but it got canceled. But probably the best show they've done since 2019, as far as just like, this is fun. Like, I can get into this. I think sometimes things in indoor can. Well, I'm gonna save it. All right. That's not about Cap City. I'm just going through a lot of just what really grinds my gears.
I'm gonna turn your mic down a little bit.
I'm
You're
just
yelling
going
at
through.
us.
Sorry.
Quit yelling at us, Evan. All right.
I'll back away.
He's getting excited, folks. He's getting excited.
But yeah,
I feel like there's so many things I want to say still. We didn't talk enough about X's show design. We didn't talk enough about, like, I have things to say. I think the last third of their show needs work. Pacing, engagement, but we're hoping to sit down with Tim and Ryan, so we'll get into that in more detail. Look for that video down the road, and they can walk us through some details, but that's all I'll say about that. They play amazing.
They do a lot of cool stuff with the backdrops that, like, you know, I expanded on it in the last one of the other podcasts we did. It reminds me of the Nirvana show with the shadow boxes and just like how the hands come out.
Wow, super cool.
Yeah, just a really fun way to highlight and like use the visual ensemble members. I feel like that's creative than just like having the visual ensemble always on the floor all the time. It's good when groups peel away and, you know, use the negative space. Matrix is like, to me, the opposite of that, and there's like stuff going on like all the time.
That's how their last year's show was too.
And I'm just like, what am I looking at? All right, I'm gonna go for it.
Just go for it.
That is kind of an example too of like some of the issues I have where there's so much going on, and you know, sometimes less is more. Like there's the sand, they're moving the marimbas around, they're moving the vibes around, they're moving the sailboat around, they're moving the props that have fans around. I was like, there's a lot going on.
Well, it's just hard to figure out where to look at what time. And I understand when you design yourself into a box like that, like we have to reset the stage, like we have to move shit, so you set up a musical moment in the front left corner audience perspective of the floor, but yeah, our ears are being drawn there, but it's hard to focus on that because 18 things around it are being shifted around behind it. And you try to work it into the visual backdrop of it, but it's just tough.
Well, that's such a big word too in like the judging community. Like even in outdoor, like they talk about split focus as a judge. Like, okay, are my eyes leading to me the same place that my ears are? And you know, it's hard to get transitions done well, which is why like I understand it's good to rearrange the field and rearrange the tarp, and sometimes that can be really well done, but you almost have to hide it all the time instead of highlighting it all the time, because even in like high school band, we get gigged on it. Like if it's a poor transition, they're like, it's a poor transition, it's functional. Like the kids don't look good moving the props, or the members don't look good moving the props, or, you know, the keyboards don't look good all the time spinning around. Like it's just a lot going on, and that is not just my rant for them, but like even with other shows, there's a lot going on. And I've messaged people about, like, you know, I messaged TJ, I was like, dude, like y'all gotta fix this transition. Like these props are just like flying around, like what are we doing? Because like I want everyone to be their best version of themselves, but man, like that really grinds my gears, like when people are just always moving stuff.
Yeah,
because it's hard to look good doing it, and it's distracting.
Very difficult. It's one of the many limitations that, from a creativity standpoint, this activity just has in general, which if you're going to use props, there's got to be a fine line you can't cross over, or it becomes cumbersome and a burden. And I've experienced that, having had 36 rolling snare drums on the floor at one time. And literally Tim Fairbanks told us one time during rehearsal, after we learned the opener, when there was just like chaos, yet somehow you could see geometric stuff happening, he just pushed the drums out to the border of the floor and said, I'm done with these things. I'm just going to push them out there, and we're just going to leave them there. And if I need you to switch drums, we'll send you out there to switch drums, and we'll make it look clean as we can. It's tough. And the creative, I mean, front ensemble stuff is not very mobile. Drums are when they're being worn. When they're being worn, drums are. But
also, too, I think my biggest thing is that it detracts so much from just the music. And ultimately, like, that's what I want. Like, I'm not sitting there judging visual effect or visual performance or whatever. I'm like, I just want the music to be great.
Yeah.
And I do think it inhibits the consistency. Like that would probably be my biggest knock on like where we're at too, like as an activity. Like the skill sets of the members have like never been higher, but I feel like the
That's for sure.
consistency is not the same. Like I don't know, it's just not the same.
I'll get into this then to piggyback right onto that perfect segue. People try to do too much. They overcomplicate things. They creative themselves into a corner, into a box sometimes, and they shoot themselves in the foot. We're not, like, I think the way I wrote it down earlier was we have to stop trying to be music philosophers writing an essay and trying to, like, write the essay on the gym floor.
Yeah.
The medium just doesn't lend itself to that well. I'm not saying it's impossible to, like, for a broken clock to be right twice a day. Like, it's going to happen where somebody just has the right concept and everything works and the idea flows really well from them into the creative medium. But it's
I
like,
think too,
look at all the shows, like
the historic iconic shows.
yes,
like go
Touch, Gone, Tilt in drum corps was super simple. And I'm sure there were some layers to those shows, but overall, you could take a non-drummer person and sit them in that audience. I think Infinity's show, the Time show Infinity did a couple years ago.
RCC when they won at 18, the Listen show where they did like, you know, it was simple, but they were so great.
Man in the Arena.
The Man in the Arena. The Pulse,
Simple.
the Uninvited show.
Simple.
Like simple, but like they amped it up. And like that closer is still like maybe one of like my all-time favorite closers of like WGI history.
Well, because when you have simple stuff like that, it gives you a super broad spectrum of things you can do. You're not trying to tell some abstract story where you have to shoehorn awkward voiceover comments to try and let the crowd know that this is what this represents and we want you to think about this right here. It's like, just do cool stuff, play cool music, play clean flam drags, sick marimba runs. Like,
speaking of flam drags, that was one of the things I wrote down.
That quote was funny. You texted earlier.
I was like, there's too many shows that are trying to create like some super deep connection. Like this medium is too short. Like you're not gonna make someone always like it's not like a movie where you can like cry at the end or something. Like plus it's hard to do that and create some deep emotional connection where somebody's sunk in and then like 10 seconds later it's like, oh, we gotta play some flam drags because we gotta get the snare break. Like that's not the medium.
And then you end up becoming super reliant on voiceovers to try to get your point across, which clutters everything and detracts from the music. And it's like, it's something else people said to us a lot is they're not seeing a lot of innovation. Well, you have to have room to innovate. If everyone's trying to write an essay on the floor about the meaning of life or something like that, you don't have as broad of area to paint with, for lack of a better way to say it. And
I think the innovation comes with like, dude, honestly, I think of like Aaaand for a couple years. Like they did the punch and bag
look
thing.
at the
like,
high school shows. Thank you.
Are they the first group to do that? Like it's very similar to what RCC did with the split snare drum stuff and the My First Things show. I don't know what year that was, but they won with that year. I think it was 2007. But and then Aaaand did the other thing where they were doing the juggle stuff, like
the super abstract stuff. Go ahead.
But that involves the music.
Yeah.
So
well, I'm glad you brought up the high school part because now part of it is a money thing where like and band dads can build amazing, crazy things in their garage
and help you get it on and off the floor.
So I get up and you have tend to probably have more money at the top of those big high school programs to do stuff with, but I think you see less of the abstract, like I need a PhD to understand this on a first or second read in the high school scholastic world setting. Like, look at Aaaand's show this year. Isn't it just Float? Levitt? What's it called?
Float, I think.
Float.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
simple. You can do so much cool stuff with that.
Father Ryan for years, they did the WGI where they had like kids wrestling out there and stuff. And like those shows were fun. I think the high school shows a lot of times are more fun and entertaining without like sometimes the independent world shows like get cringy
Well, the independent shows
because we're trying to like
we're
get
too,
like
we're too high on our own supply. We think we're smarter
Yeah.
than we are. We think that we can recreate the wheel, and
I know this is
things
gonna be a
just
slight towards
feel
one group and they're probably gonna take it the wrong way, and I don't mean it the wrong way, but like I don't want to see a show about like Alzheimer awareness.
yeah.
Like it's just like I don't know. I think of
it's
like
an
this
important
activity.
message,
I think
and
of this activity as almost like an escape from like depression and anxiety. Like I want things to be fun. I want them to be cool. I want them to be badass. Like
yeah.
like I don't know.
And that's
I
not
want
to
them, I want
downplay
people
the
to drum
seriousness.
really well.
We all know Alzheimer's and all that stuff, and things like that are serious things. We've all had family members, or most of us
Yeah.
probably, that have been affected by dementia and all that stuff. So we get it, but just keep it out of the fun that we have. I don't know. It makes it too heavy, and it's just
I think about
causes
like the
things to
members
stagnate because
like,
there's been
rehearsing
like
that
this
stuff
formulaic
all the
stuff. Sorry, I cut you off. What
No,
you saying?
I cut you. I started
Oh.
first.
I mean, I've had multiple people text me and be like, the independent world scene is just like getting stale, man. Like they're all just doing the same woe is me kind of stuff, or just like
Yeah.
low type abstract philosophical. I don't know. I think,
Segway GMU.
yeah, this is
So
exactly where we want to go from this.
dude, at the beginning of the year, I was not sure how I felt about it. But
I was on the fence.
after we got into like the first month, I was like, I'm all in. You're absolutely right. Like this activity needs to be almost have the ability to make fun of itself
Mhm.
and like not take itself too seriously. There needs to be some type of levity in
And
there.
I think there's an undertone in their show. There's levity in their show, and it's calling out the sameness from year to year, and not just from individual groups, just in general. There's things that have become just tropes of independent world specifically, of like, oh, now group A is doing their interpretive dance block for 30 seconds where they put their drums down and they do that, or now this group is doing this same thing they've done for the past 5 years. It's like they're bringing light to, we need to get outside of what we've been doing for the past handful of years and have
and
a
they
little
would
more
not
fun
be
with the
scoring
shows.
well, and it wouldn't work if those tropes and stereotypes weren't factual.
Very true. And they're just bringing light to something that I guarantee a lot of you listening to this have talked to your friends about, or laughed with over a beer, or if you're in high school or early college.
I guarantee you some
fast food.
designers have been talking about it.
100%. And so I don't think anyone should be offended by what GMU's doing this year. I think it's all in good fun, and I think there's a little bit of there's the right amount of undertone of like, all right, guys, we have to break out of the mold that we've fallen into for the past 8 years.
It reminds me too of like the scary movies, like making fun of the horror genre. It's like,
yeah,
I mean, horror is a great genre, but like at the same time, like the movies have tropes and stuff. It's like this one person's left alone by themselves all the time. Like,
and on top of it, I think GMU plays pretty well to this year. So
I mean, they play well. So like, there has to be both things exist. Like the tropes and the jokes have to be pretty accurate, and you have to play well. So
very excited to see. I think UD is going to love that one in person at finals. I'm super excited to see it. Let's go to Atlanta Quest, since we're talking about like the formulaicness and the staleness of everything. Atlanta Quest once again plays extremely well.
Bass cue, top 3 bass line again, I think. So
I think the snare line's
Hold it
probably
down.
up there too, or will be.
snare line,
Not top 3, but like in the upper echelon of independent world in playing ability.
They play really well. But
the whole
I do
ensemble's
think
solid, but their show.
But again,
I get their show. I think it's simple. I understand it. They're building a ship. They're getting, you know what I mean? Like it's like saving
they're building
humanity.
a sanctuary.
Yeah, whatever you want to call it. And there's not much deeper than that. There's things like the pillars are just part of this. It's supposed to let you see a structure. There's a structure that's being built, and there's pillar. You know what I mean? Like
we're finding these objects and we're using them to like save ourselves.
And if you watch the pacing of the show, I texted you this after I watched the run from this yesterday. I was like, All right. It's just like, all right, the pit opens up the show. Then we have, here's our snare line by themselves. Look how good we are. And then it transitions right over to the quad line. Then it transitions over to the bass line. Then it's a full ensemble musical moment. And then it's like a slow moment. It's like the typical progression of every indoor show. And that's not to their fault, but their show last year didn't have depth.
That's what the shows want.
And they were like, you know what? We're just going to design to the sheets as well as we freaking can. Because we know we're going to play well. And we're not going to try to be over eggheady with it or intellectual with it. It's going to be straightforward. We're going to say, here's how well we can play. Here's our simple A to B, start line to finish line concept. Give us points as much as you want. Like,
and I like that. And like, you know, I think sometimes too, even judges themselves are like trying to overthink things. And like, well, what does this show mean? It's like, it means what it means. Like, it means this. Like, if you don't get it, then I don't know. Like,
and that's part of what I mean by saying we're a little too high on our own supply. And that goes for the judges. That goes for the designers. Like, it's drums in a gym, people.
Yeah, I want to hear some clean beats that are cool.
You're not going to produce something on the level of Henry David Thoreau on the gym floor with snare drums and quads and
in 7.5 minutes.
In 7.5 minutes. Now,
are
there shows that have made me feel something? 100%. There's shows that... But what I'm saying is, like...
Yeah.
There's a line to where it becomes just, okay, nobody understands what's going on here. Whatever.
I feel like I get goosebumps on shows, though, when it's, like, so good.
Yes.
Not because, like, the design was, like... It just, like, hit me.
There's been shows that I've related to that were simple enough to follow from A to B, start to finish, and like Infinity, when they started out, they explained that to us of like at birth, it's the beginning of the show, and it goes through, and then at the end they all get in the coffins, because that's where we all end up. And it's
but I've never cried at the end of a show.
No tears, but like every
maybe
human,
as a staff member,
every human could relate to that show.
Yeah,
if you have half a brain,
but you know, watching the, you know, you brought up the Man in the Arena earlier, like the opening bass, like you're just like, and then you get to the Muse part where they're just like all yelling and the members are like, and they're just like yelling. You're just like, this is sick, just because they're so hyped and they're so into it. Like, and then they play really, really well. Same thing, like I said, with that Pulse show 2017, RCC 2018, RCC 2015, probably one of my top 3 shows of all time. But yeah, even it draws you in when it's fantastic.
Yep.
I do think
of the emotion and feeling, like you said, comes from the execution, because we all know what good execution is, and that will give you way more impact on the audience than what that quote added in the middle of the slow chart featuring the marimbas representing some undertone of whatever. And that is, I don't want this conversation to get too, we hate any subtle meaning within a show, because that's not exactly what we're saying.
No.
But it's just, it's a spectrum, and you got to find a middle where you have a little of both. Over here is where we've trended towards an independent world, which is all the abstractness and none of the concreteness. We need to come back and correct and find a balance point. I don't know.
Yeah, and I don't even think that, I don't want to get misconstrued to where, like, you know, I just want shows to be in your face, like loud and abrasive all the time. Like, delicacy and musicianship is, you know, the only thing that makes loud great is having quiet. The only thing that makes fast great is having slow. Like, you have that juxtaposition. But I just don't think that we need to try to, like, cure humanity in WGI, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We're not doing abstract art.
Yeah.
Is the way to boil it down.
Yeah.
It's like you walk into an art gallery and there's like a banana taped to a wall. Modern art. Really?
Let me topple over this tower and everybody applaud because I stacked something up in the top.
Yeah.
I saw that dude. Somebody did that with like a pile of bucket of sand or something. I was like,
okay. I'm looking at my notes. Did we kind of interjected the rant in the middle of the season, but it worked.
We did.
It's fine.
You know, I don't want to get into too much of rankings because we are going to do that in the tiers. I think the shows this year that I really like as far as just like watching them are like X, AQ, Pulse. Like I don't get it, but they play well, and it's like really
Enjoyable.
good. So
It's enjoyable.
I like the
RCC.
MCM show. RCC, yeah, RCC is great.
The MCM show to me is weird. Doesn't have the depth that. And I just got done going on a rant talking about don't have too much depth, but I just don't know. It gets stale
I just hope
to
it's
me.
not done. Yeah, I just hope it's not done.
Me too.
Or,
it just gets stale.
Or that the ending changes.
Yeah, the ending was a little bit of an eyebrow raiser. Yeah,
I think I put them up there.
I
love
also
this activity.
think Rhythmic Force and Meraki are my two. Like, I know Rhythmic Force made finals last year, but I hope, for my own ego, Meraki makes finals, because objectively speaking, their book is not that hard. But you know what? They execute it really well. They came out of the gate executing well, and the scores showed it. So as long as the show has the legs, it will fully vindicate me in my saying of like, when in doubt, just freaking water the book and be clean and let the chips fall where they may. Like, I'd rather hear a pristine triplet roll at 160 something than really dirty flam vocabulary or cold attacks at like 196 that your kids can't play. Like,
accurate. Yeah, and I'll say this too, like another just disclaimer, like, you know, these are our opinions. I love this activity. Yeah, I love this activity so much. And I respect it so much. Like, I've never been in a designer's shoes, but I can only tell you, like, you know, what I want and what I like and what, like, you know, really gets me excited about the activity. So
yeah, that's the moral of the story. We love this stuff. That's why we've been doing this for coming up on 8 years now. We just got to find the balance. I know I contradicted myself saying Mystique Show doesn't have enough depth, but they're too far over here on the concrete side. Maybe it's all about that balance, everybody, is the point I'm trying to get across here. Do you think Atlanta Quest will beat the final boss of Independent World of the top 10? I think they'll play well enough.
I think that they will play well enough. Dude, I'm really going to have to sit down and do these rankings.
It's going to be tough.
And figure out. I think they could, because I think someone who's been in front of the final boss is not going to be in front of the final boss.
I fully agree with that.
So,
also, I thought, in case any of you all looked at the recap and didn't see this, I didn't look close enough. I thought Redline beat Connexus this weekend. Connexus got a penalty. But I also do think, because Redline was one of our big misses. Redline was one of our big misses last year in the prelims block of the predictions. They finished considerably higher than we thought. Maybe they're building on that. Maybe they're trending upward. I haven't seen the show. I can't speak on whether I think they'll make semis this year or not. But you also have Dark Sky. You have Thesis out in California. You've got Red Wave, a handful of other groups. We're not going to take the time to fully dive into all that. We'll talk about them a little more in the predictions podcast. But
Impact, new to world class.
Who? Impact? Oh, yeah, Impact. Yeah, forgot about that. But yeah, I think we have a top 6 at this point.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be... I don't want to... Not like actual rankings. I'm not doing any of that, but I want to talk big picture. I think we have a top 6 now. I think we have... I think this year, the way the chips fall from like 7 to like 12 is going to be very jumbled from what it was last year. I think it's going to be a lot of the same faces in that range, but I think the order is going to be notably different. I could see AQ being higher than we think. I hope GMU finishes really well, because their show's fun, like we talked about. It's making a statement, which is fun. Satire of the activity. It's just a good time all around. PAL will be in that mix, probably the 9-10. I think that'll be the one consistent point. I think PAL will be in the 9-10 range, maybe 11.
The bar.
I think Matrix will be at the lower part of that, like 7 through 12 this year.
Yeah. Yeah, there's going to be some... Because then you got to think you got Cap City and Monarch in there.
You got those groups in there to figure out where they're going to sit. I hope Rhythmic Force makes finals again. I hope Meraki makes finals.
I thought Rhythmic Force was better than Monarch at that show earlier this year. But...
we had that discussion. We're being candid on this podcast today. So we had that discussion after that. We watched that. I was surprised how close they were to the eyes and ears test watching things. But, the people at Monarch teaching and designing, they've been there before. They know what they're doing. I'm sure they've added a lot to the show, finished it. They know how to make the kids play well. It'll be interesting. Hopefully, plans for till predictions. We're hoping to do some sit downs with some designers. We're talking to Shane Gwaltney. We're talking to Tim Jackson. We've reached out to Kevin Shaw about him and Mike. I think if that one happens, it's going to be after the season.
They said after the season.
Yeah, which I get. They want the product to be finished before they sit down and talk through things. So I totally understand that. We're probably going to reach out to the Infinity guys soon. Have a couple of them on again. We'll just see who all we have time, because obviously we have 3.5 weeks, and you and I have to be creative with when we record some of this stuff, because you've got a vacation finals week, so we have to have the predictions podcast and our last reaction video recorded before the weekend of finals week, and then we just have to do some logistical stuff to make this work, but we'll make it happen. I don't think there's anything we forgot to talk about. I'm looking back at my notes that I made.
I'll save anything else for post finals or rankings or whatever we got coming down the highway. I hit that. I am happy that WGI has the old scores page back. I did put that down because the one they had last year was a jumbled mess.
Yeah, I remember that. We complained about that a lot. Play clean, folks. Play to the aged out fundamentals. If you're a member, whether your group has a home run of a show this year or has a dud of a show,
play great.
If you play clean, you will do better than you think you were going into whatever competition you're going to. Because at the end of the day, one of the two pillars of this activity is the pursuit of perfection. The pursuit of excellence. Is everything. Huh?
Clean is everything.
It is, man. Sticker on the website. Shameless plug. All right, everybody. I don't think I have anything else. Evan, you done?
I'm good.
I hope we didn't offend anybody with this. We're just being very candid. Facebook, Instagram, Aged Out Fundamentals, like I said, agedoutpodcast.com, brashdrums.com. Grab an alpha pad. They also have a quad pad that's solid that breaks down. They have the Mojo pad as the lower tier pad. I'm a huge fan of the alpha pad above everything else. It feels phenomenal. But solid place to get a good pad to play on every day. Patreon.com. Join button here on YouTube. And it's just drums in a gym, people. We'll see you in the next one.
Peace.